soda, and other similar estrogens like these are detrimental to our health. Even worse, estrogens like these, beer, shall be eliminated.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the most complete, life-changing video on estrogenics you will ever see in your entire life. Every single, this book is 220 pages long. I've narrowed it down to 20 pages. Pure knowledge on estrogenics. By the time you end this, you'll be an absolute god. Your level of self-care will go to God tier. So we have 3 core parts in this book. Very important, every single one. I'll probably make 2 videos because it's a lot of information. This is one of the key parts. This is what Anthony calls the top 10 IRS index. It's the top 10 most potent estrogens in your environment. Let's start with 1. 1 is phytoestrogens. So phytoestrogens are not too bad. Supposed to be not too bad because they're plant estrogens. They're natural estrogens. The only problem is that now, in our industrialized world, we've been able to process and package all of them. So now they are pretty bad. And there's 3 key ones. Number 1, let's get the elephant out of the room. Honestly, I don't even know if it's the elephant anymore, but it's basically cannabis. I know some people do that. If you're a person on self-improvement, you slip up sometimes. If you're a high-value, superior man, then you very rarely slip up. That's me and you right here. So we rarely slip up. But what cannabis does is it not only lowers your testosterone, but it's also it obviously disrupts some brain patterns. If you're young, you shouldn't do it. But I'm not your parenting coach. It's your choice. But basically, cannabis, what it also does is it also is a big estrogen. So it will raise your estrogenic levels. And there's a lot of studies. Please, if you're saying right now, you need more studies, I need more. There's at least 10 studies on this that are proving what estrogen does, or what cannabis does to increase your estrogen levels. Please don't tell me that you need more studies. Like how many? Okay, 100, 1,000, 2,000, 12,000 studies? How many studies? Right? That's just cope. Like, no. Come on, we have enough studies. And next, we have something that is known as lavender. So, Anthony mentions lavender. Again, it's not too bad in its normal form, the natural form, like a lavender flower. But the problem is now it's all processed. So those lavender shampoos, I was pretty surprised, honestly. I did not expect lavender to be one of them. But I guess it is, which makes it's a very fragile scent if you kind of understand it. So don't go crazy, but please, get rid of your, lavender body washes. Stay away from them. Lavender petals in your bath. If you take baths, you probably shouldn't use these artificial lavender flowers. Because it's not even real lavender, man. It's just the flavor of the lavender. It's the scent. It's not an actual lavender. And another thing is these diffusers. You know those, what are they called? Air refresheners? Air diffusers? Where you plug it in a battery, and it pulls out the smoke. Or it's like a candle, so it's like... And then it gives you the smoke of lavender scent in a room. Maybe you have a friend, or maybe you do this. Likewise, these candles. So, the lavender scent candles and whatever else, please get rid of them. They're not too healthy. Very not good. They will raise your estrogen levels. Not a good move. Please get rid of them if you can. If you're really desperate, okay, maybe I guess keep one. But again, if you want to take your health seriously, we'll talk about how to get rid of this in one of the last chapters or last parts. But for now, just keep that in the back of your mind. Lavender is estrogenic. Next, we have flaxseed and soy. Now, he measures this in micrograms of phytoestrogen per 100 grams, which is kind of a weird measurement, but basically it's a small amount. But what was that quote? It was like the small dose makes the poison or whatever. I forget the quote, but it's killing you slowly, honestly. Maybe it's not killing you, but it's definitely weakening you slowly. So let's just give you quick measurements. It's not all of them, so please don't like think I'm some crazy guy who's like, oh no, we gotta get everything. I'm not those crazy guys. But let's say flaxseed, for example. Flaxseed oils, they're not olive oils. There's maybe I'll go a little bit more in depth, but different oils have different types. So some of them are full oils, some of them are like olive oil is good. Basically, don't even bother with all this scientific stuff. Olive oil is good. 100 organic butter, let's say like, what is it, whole butter is good. But those sunflower oils, those seed oils, please avoid cooking them at all costs. Not good. I know a lot of people, for example, in Europe, the Soviet Union, they always cooked on these sunflower oils. It turns out it's not healthy. And not just because of the oil, but also it's wrapped in plastic. But we'll talk about this a little later. So, I'm getting a little ahead of myself. You get the taste of fixing your estrogenic habits. So, basically, just to compare, we have soybeans. And soybeans have about 100,000 micrograms of phytoestrogen per 100 grams. Which is a lot. I won't use, that's a huge phrase. So, let's just say, basically, it has around 100,000, that's actual facts, by the way, I'm not just making this up. So it has 100,000, god damn it, micrograms of phytoestrogen per 100 grams. There we go. Flax seeds have about 370,000 micrograms of phytoestrogen per 100 grams. That's a lot. That's almost like, what, double or quadruple of what soy has. Or, yeah, quadruple pretty much. That's a lot. Now, just for comparison, what's it called? The flax seeds and soy, in comparison to, for example, beans, Anthony gives an example of chickpeas and black beans. They're also estrogenic, but chickpeas have about 6 micrograms of phytoestrogen per 100 grams, in comparison to almost 400,000. That's a huge difference. So basically, you know, like any food is probably going to have a little bit of estrogen, but to the amount that soy and flaxseed have, and they're just off the charts. It's insane. There's a chart, I'll maybe link it in my Telegram. It just shows you. It's like you have the soy or the kidney beans, the black beans, the chickpeas, like down at the bottom, and you just have this like skyrocket chart. It's off the charts. It's about, you know, flax seeds and soy. Really not good. So soy protein, please be careful. You know what we do with soy protein? Soy protein bars, which are not good protein bars. Whenever you look for protein, if you're building your muscle, the first thing you should do is look at the primary ingredient. The primary ingredient here is soy. Soy, especially soy that is processed and concentrated, is worse than the soy that is natural. Anything processed is worse. And to these protein bars, I would rather do the same thing I did with the other products that have estrogens. Soy protein has about 9,000 micrograms of phytoestrogen per 100 grams. Now that I got the phrase, I'm going to keep saying it. Alright, so let's talk about the second estrogenic. It's ZEA. This is a very important estrogenic, but it's really simple. It's not overcomplicated. It's a fungus estrogen. It's called Mycoestrogen. It's simplified to ZEA. What this estrogen, where it's found, is in basically dried up grains and cocoa beans, for example. So we have like corn, we have your classic cereal, and obviously, not surprisingly, it's found in soy. So basically, a farmer plows something up, he gets those grains in a sack, a linen sack, he ships it off somewhere, they develop fungus. And it's not like, you know, huge, so you can't really, sometimes you don't even see it. But it is there, so upon eating it, you get your estrogens from the fungus. And it's obviously not healthy. It causes liver tumors occasionally. And Anthony mentions that it does impair the male reproductive system, which makes sense. And not surprisingly, soy has it. So please stay away from soy. For example, Ritz crackers, check the ingredient list. Ritz crackers, you know those classic, everybody knows Ritz crackers. Like, what was it? I think David Goggins eats them on, like, he said one of his big runs, he ate Ritz crackers or whatever. He's like, I bought a box of Ritz and a water, and that's all I had for my run. But anyway, so it's in a lot of stuff. Soy, so just take a look at the ingredients list. Not what it says on the box, but the ingredient list. It's like just peek at it. We have next something that is known as atrazine. Atrazine is a herbicide, so it's the stuff you spray around your crops in order for the crops to grow better. Now, Anthony says in general, in total, we have about 300,000 million tons of estrogen, or I'm sorry, it is estrogen, but it's more specifically, it's herbicide. So 300,000. That's a lot, obviously. And we have 80 million tons of this coming from atrazine. So atrazine, it is like, honestly, bro, think about it. Like, it's not even a solid. It's like this spraying liquid that later turns into gas. And we somehow accumulate 80 million pounds of that. And we eat this stuff. That's crazy. It's mind-blowing sometimes. So obviously that's not healthy, and it causes developmental issues. So the developmental issues in young children, and I wouldn't be surprised in fetuses either. Well, it makes sense. It's pretty self-explanatory because it's preventing, weeds from growing and bugs dying. So it's killing the bugs and making sure that the weeds don't grow. So no wonder it impairs your growth factor and probably growth hormone and all your developmental organs. So we have then, after this, we have our soap estrogenics. The soap estrogenics are Triclosan, I think is what it's called. It's like, Triclosan and APEs. A, P, and E, and S is just added because it's, the plural sound, or the many of them. So APE and Triclosan. So APEs, they are apparently so common that they don't even get listed on the ingredients list. It's not required to list APEs on the ingredient list. I was pretty shocked when I heard that. So it's pretty insane. Now, obviously, if you're a business owner and you don't have to list another chemical on your ingredients list, well, no wonder. Of course you wouldn't list it. No mule is going to list something that he doesn't need to list on his ingredient list because that'll bring the sales down because people will not trust it as much, obviously. And it's really not healthy. It's in fact toxic. So in Europe, and even in China, the most polluted country, now that's no disrespect, it's just, industrialization. China, the most polluted country, it is considered a toxin. In the US, it does not have to be listed on a label. Think of how insane that is. Now that's facts, like I'm not making any of this up. This is legitimate research from not a third party. This is legit, scientific lab studies. It's crazy, but nobody talks about this. Triclosan is also found in soap. So it is linked with BPA, but it is not exactly BPA. So it is listed. So that one is good, obviously, because, that one is not as common, and that one has to be listed in the ingredients list if it is, in fact, being used. And in general, it was labeled as a toxin, is non-safe, since 2017. I'll put in a little note. So how would you defend against this? Now this is my personal approach. In terms of Zea, obviously check your coffee beans. Make sure it's from a high, we'll go what Anthony talks about a little later. So he gives us 3 plants, the golden, the silver, and the bronze. But my personal stuff, I don't drink coffee ever. I think it's too many people drink coffee. I don't like to be part of the masses. And I don't enjoy particularly drinking coffee because it's like, I don't have any crutches. It's another crutch that, you wake up in the morning, where's my energy drink? Where's my coffee? You don't have, tell me, did your ancestors, did your great-great-great-great-grandfather drink coffee? He might have, but that was a while ago because coffee originally came into Europe. I'll give you a little background. They put coffee in Europe in order to make you coffee and tea, in order for you to work faster, because caffeine hypes you up. So everybody was usually slow. They replaced, rum and alcohol because water would get bacteria and it will get contagious. So you'd put obviously rum in the water, or a little bit of alcohol to kill the bacteria. Then I want to say it's 19th century, 17th century, somewhere then. But they got maybe 16th century. Yeah, it might have been like that. Yeah. No. What I'm talking, it's like 15th, 16th century. But they put basically tea, or they replaced the alcohol with tea. So then the workers, why do you think the tea breaks came on? Tea breaks it's important because you drink the coffee, you get more energized. You drink tea, you get more energized. You're like, you know? It's so, I don't know. But anyway, so, excuse the rant, but if you ever do drink coffee, make sure that it's high quality. Don't buy those cheap, stuff. Oats, usually I haven't seen usually it's, what's it called? There's this popular brand, at least in the US. It's called Quaker's Oats. I think it's pretty good. I doubt that they'll give you low quality oats, but obviously if you're in some, ghetto fast food restaurant, then they give your fast food store, then don't buy those, sketchy oats. Check for Zia. Next, herbicides wash your fruits and vegetables. We'll go into this a little later. And in terms of soaps, how you defend yourself against soaps is buy a natural soap bar. Stop using, if you want to get serious about this, this will boost your skin health, your testosterone levels if you're a man. It will boost your probably, sexual drive. Anything, your health in general, your fertility will be preserved. Instead of using any sort of body wash, shampoo, conditioner, all this unnatural stuff, even if it's expensive shampoo, they still have this huge ingredients list with like monoxidil oil or whatever. They're like, what? It's insane. I mean, I've been guilty of it myself, so I'm not perfect, but buy those, what I did? I bought those soap bars. I went online, we have the blessing of going online, and I bought myself soap bars that are completely natural. So I think it's called like Bend soap. I'm not sponsored or anything, but I wish, because we need to support these companies. If we support these companies, then they grow. It's literally a win-win for everybody. You grow and they grow. So you get health and they get profits and they expand. We need to support these corporations. So obviously, it's very important. So I bought this soap, and this soap allows you to, it's made like, it has 5 ingredients, like goat's milk, oatmeal, and honey. And there's a lot of flavors, but it's all natural. So it's goat milk, honey, it's something else. It's like coconut oil and a few other stuff. Super natural. So definitely, if you have a chance, get it. There's another product that I've seen, which is called First Man. He's a YouTuber, very good guy. So he released a product that's called Testosterone Friendly Body Wash. I think it only uses 3 ingredients. I've researched all 3 ingredients. Great product. Very good. The only problem is that is located in the UK. So in order to get it shipped to the US, it's insanely expensive. Like the product itself is I think like $17. In order to get it shipped, it's like $45. So, just buy a soap bar. Your body will thank you. No, it's not the best smell. It doesn't smell good. It kind of, I'm going to be honest, it does not have a pleasant smell. It does not stay on you, but when you wash it, it's not a pleasant smell. So, you know what, bro? If it boosts my testosterone, if it gives me my health back, I don't care. I don't give a single damn how the soap smells. Am I really, I don't care, man. If it boosts my health up, I'm doing it. I don't know about you. That's just my personal choice. So, let's move on. The next item, or estrogenic on the line, is the BP and 4-MBC. So BP is not exactly BPA. It's a sunscreen estrogenic. Sunscreen. So the stuff you rub on yourself and your kids every day, probably. And there are good sunscreens. So Anthony mentions that there are very good. If a sunscreen has a lot of zinc, it is healthy. But often the sunscreens will have something known as benzophenone or whatever. It's like, if you see, Anthony, that's a fact. So if you see something that says benz, B-E-N-Z, or phen, which is P-H-E-N, it is not good. It's estrogenic. So if a sunscreen, now even some of those high-end sunscreens, like those, white girl sunscreens that those rich white girls use, the stereotype, they are oftentimes, a lot of those, and they're also containing a lot of these chemicals. So it doesn't necessarily have to be expensive, it has to be quality. And what benzophenone, or whatever it is, I think it is benzophenone. It was labeled as the allergen of the year during the time of the book being written. So that's about, let's see, 2017 or 18 that book came out. So yeah, it was labeled as allergen of the year. Obviously, America doesn't give a damn, so they still put that in your sunscreens. And it's obviously not healthy, but the 4-MBC is likewise not healthy, and it is in fact banned in Europe, but it is in fact promoted in corporate America. So because it makes money, it's a cheap substance to use, but it's not healthy. But it's all about profits and commerce. Unfortunately, it's all about profits and commerce, you know? But that's just the nature of our humans, you know? We survive by profits, because, you know, you always want to climb higher. If we didn't want to climb higher, we'd probably die. That's how the cavemen survived. That's how it's always been. The key is just, you know, to never surrender, to fight, and to take care of your health. But the way it also works, the bad part about sunscreen is when you rub this sunscreen on your, you know, skin, the skin actually absorbs this, but when the sun shines, this, like, the chemicals and the sunscreen, it gets kind of glued onto your skin. I'll explain this. So a good explanation is your skin, the way it works is the sun shines on your skin, the cells die. When the cells die, they either, you know, fall off, or, for example, they, you know, die and, you know, get rid of, the body gets rid of them. The problem with putting cheap sunscreen on with all these chemicals is when you are exposed to a sun for a long time, those cells that are supposed to die, they in fact get kind of like CPR. They get basically, what is it called? What's the word? Life support. They get put on life support from sunscreen. So those half-dead cells that are supposed to die, they don't die. They end up staying on your skin. That's not healthy. And when they get stayed up on your skin, they mutate. And this is what causes cancers, which we'll dive into. I think it's part 2. We'll go into how this all causes cancers. Now, you see the link, right? You see this. So those skin cells that are supposed to die, they don't die, and they get absorbed. The sunscreen kind of keeps them, you know, on. Especially if it's horrible. If it's cheap sunscreen, it's a whole different ballgame. Keep that in mind. Now we have another very important estrogenic. It is called red number 40 and red number 3. Food coloring. Just the red food coloring. So, I mean, honestly, bro, I'm telling you, any food coloring is pretty much, I doubt there's any health in eating food coloring. But, you know, red is especially. So, Anthony mentions that the red food coloring is very, very estrogenic. And there's a lot of different types. Any, like, you know those jellies, those red, what are they called? Jello or whatever the frick. So, it's these, like, little jellies in cans. And, yes, even candy canes. Now, am I saying, don't eat candy canes, you know, get estrogen? Like, obviously not. Like, you know, if it's Christmas, you want to pop a few candy canes and enjoy yourself, then please do. But just stay away from those big artificial red dyes, because red dyes were proven to increase a ton of things. So estrogenics is one. And I don't know why nobody talks about it, but they were considered indicative of central nervous system depression back in the 1970s. In 1977, to be more specific. Now, why the hell? This is my question. Why did nobody told us this? In our school's health class, we learned how to, you know, put on a freaking condom. We never learned how exactly to take care of our own health. And you know why? Because they don't know about this. So, because it's not beneficial, again, to the commerce world to reveal this. So, this is, I guess, kind of going against their desires, but it's important. I don't give a damn what their desires are, because, again, if it keeps me and us healthy, and if it helps us become more superior and more high value and more healthy, I don't give a damn. So, that's insane. But, obviously, it was also, there's a study that Anthony mentions. The study basically involved kids who took red dye 3 and red dye 40, and it was 3-year-olds and I think 8 and 9-year-olds. You know what it did? It increased their hyperactivity. It increased their hyperactivity. ADHD. Does that sound familiar? The rise in ADHD. Does that sound familiar? In correlation to the rise of processed foods, to the rise of kids buying their little jellies and eating them like freaking at lunch, like slurping them through straws, like the red food coloring, bro. Really? I think there's definitely a correlation between this. The study proves this. So this is insane, which is, it's honestly, it's very annoying. But again, the studies, they show the increase in ADHD, and instead of the doctors, you know, prescribing pills, let's say you got sick, instead of trying to put pills on top of this, why don't you just eliminate this initial barrier? Because when you eliminate the initial barrier, there is no more problem. Versus having the barrier right now, the big main thing, and just putting cover-ups on top of it. Like, you know, pills. You know why? Pills, what do? You have to buy them. When you buy pills, you obviously have to spend money, and this is commerce. So it is in their interest to keep you on a lower health level. It takes a while. Like, once you start connecting the ropes, it really starts making sense. But you have to use, it's a little complex. But once you turn on simple logic, me and you, now you know, hopefully. So, again, even during the 1980s, the researchers, they began to show the acceleration of tumors from red number 40. That is, in the 1980s, the acceleration of tumors, when cancer was beginning to rise. Well, I don't know when it began to rise, but in the 1980s, they were showing that red dyes, number 40, accelerate tumors. Now, different red dyes, Anthony mentions, they have different frequencies, so some are stronger, some are weaker, but instead of memorizing them, just don't use them. Like, come on. Not a lot of studies have been done on this. I wonder why. This is very suspicious. So, since the 1980s, there was a few studies, but not a lot of studies discussing red dyes in specific. Again, I don't know what the hell, but Anthony gives a good quote. He says, well, would you want to wait for negative studies to come out? He says, I'm not, and I'm not either, and hopefully you are not either, because I know, freaking fizz bump. We're not doing this. We're not waiting for studies on increased cancer come out, and then realizing that we've been eating this red dye all the time. So just stay away from them. Very important. All right, let's talk about the 7th one. So number 7 is the parabens, and they are basically fragrance estrogenics. We're almost done. Number 7, we have the parabens, and they are, the fragrance, so the stuff you spray on. They're supposed to be considered weak estrogenics, so there's not a lot of talks about parabens, but they are still potent, so they are potent estrogenics, and they're banned in the EU, as you guessed, the European Union, they are banned. But what they do cause is they cause oftentimes brain damage, and they were studies that Anthony shows that prove that it connects parabens to autism. So autism is connected to parabens. That's a little insane. And, they're shown to increase anxiety in rats, probably similar to humans. But likewise, they're not banned in the US. I don't know. That's just, it's a little strange if you ask me. But basically, then we have number 8, which is the phthalates. Phthalates, they're plastic estrogens. So phthalates, they're very similar to BPAs, but they're not exactly BPAs. So phthalates, BPAs is like the core. Phthalates, they're like little sprinklers, like sprinkles of, estrogenics. So obviously not good, but funny study with this one. So they were trying to compare people to get for this study to test the effects of phthalates. They were trying to find people without phthalates. And what they did is they basically could not find any. They could not find any people without phthalates in the US. Every single person had a little bit of phthalates in their urine. How? I don't want to swear, but it's just like, how does this happen? That's crazy. You know where they had to go? They had to go to Alaska. They had to find Alaskan natives. They were the only ones who did not have phthalates. And Anthony makes a joke. He's like, and towards the end of the book, he's like, well, how many Alaskan natives can we afford, to test before they get polluted too? So it's insane. And these phthalates, they're basically found in pens, a lot of pens. They're found in food containers. So plastic, especially, think about it. When you put hot, if you make an omelet or oatmeal, and you put it in like a hot container, the heat, it makes the parabens go out of the container. And it is worse for your health than if you put it in cold. Even at room temperature, it's not good, but hot especially. Please, please, please. It doesn't even sound right. Please don't put hot foods in plastic. When you put hot foods in plastic, it just looks weird. Like you taste bad, it doesn't taste natural, sometimes if it's exceptionally hot, because it melts the damn plastic. Same with hot teas. Don't put them in these foam plastic cups, please. Just use metal cups or glass, metal or glass. And there's a lot of those in children's toys. So children's toys, that's a big story. I have, personally, when I was growing up, I had a sister. So my sister, we had these little chewy toys, those little dumbbell that the kids have. It's like, they have rings. So we would play, and I feel so bad for, like, this makes me mad. I don't know if it makes you mad, but we would basically play this game to where we, like, bite it. So we'd be like, oh, and pretend we're like lions. So we bite this little children's toy, bro. And when you bite these, all the parabens just, they get sucked out into your mouth. And I didn't know this, but it's because of the damn screwed over freaking plastics. I took down, and maybe you did this too, I took down my little sister's health. Potentially my kid's health. When I have a kid, now that I know this, I'm very happy because that's a good lesson. You'll be able to raise healthier kids, so will I. But it's angering to me. That it's infuriating that, I wasted so much of my health without knowing this, because the doctor's like, yeah, it's just a toy, who cares, kids, true, yeah. It passed back in the 1950s when the toys were made of, like, actual cloth of cotton or, wood. So when you, like, if you have a doll that's, like, covered in, cotton, and you chew the little piece of cotton, that doesn't do anything. But if it's a plastic, it's crazy. It's very sad, man. So there are oftentimes used in medicine, because what phthalates do is they make plastic a little more flexible. So that's why they sprinkle them in. When they sprinkle them in, it's not just, because they want to sprinkle them in. They probably do because, it puts your health down. Lower health, lower testosterone, more medicine. The more medicine, the more commerce, baby. So they make plastic more flexible. A lot of water bottles have them. Flexibility, but they're also added into medical supplies sometimes. So imagine this, we'll go into this a little later, but imagine, like, you're sitting on a ventilator. I'll save the story for later. Watch later. Very interesting story about phthalates used in medicine and how it completely destroys your health and your hormones. Stay tuned. The ninth and the most common, this is BPA and BPS. So we obviously know these. Don't do BPA, BPA free, BPA, blah, blah, blah. But BPA, it's just one. There's BPS, there's like BPZ, BPQ, there's so many of them. So Anthony says, please just avoid them in general. Because if one thing is BPA free, then BPS can even be worse than BPA in some cases. And it's like, oh, it's BPA free. Like, come on, we're not retards, we're not mules, we know this. We're not freaking, stupid guys who are like, if it's BPA free, then it's totally healthy. No, obviously, it's a psyop. Please, 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 just don't avoid any BP stuff, any estrogenics and plastics. Just drink for, okay, we'll go into tips. I'll go into tips a little later. Stay tuned. So, with, geez, I got like off track, but BPS, it's used in, likewise, a lot of replacements to BPA, and the effects can be even worse. So what it does is BPA, it is shown in studies to raise hyperactivity in kids. Now, we know the rise of, autism, the rise of hyperactivity of those kids who are like, can't sit in class and have to always like bounce and do stuff. Well, that might be contributing to this and to the estrogenics, listed in general. So the thing with BPA is also, when you drink it, it's supposed to be, like it's BPA, BPS, all of those BP stuff. When you drink it, it's supposed to be stuck on the water bottle. The problem is that little pieces of BPA, they break off and they get in your water supply. So when you drink this, you drink little pieces of BPA. And these little pieces, they can even get stuck to, what's crazy? In medicine, they can even get stuck to little pipettes. So those IVs? They can literally, like, it's hard to conduct, this is why it's hard to conduct studies. So when you try to conduct studies on BPA, a lot of them are inaccurate. And Anthony tells us the reason for this is because when you pipette the BPAs, they get stuck to the pipette. So your results are sometimes messed up, which obviously, explains why perhaps it's not banned in the US. So it isn't banned in the US. There are, though, laws against BPA, which are very lax. They are, like, super, super easygoing laws. Same with Europe. But if you think about it, think about how many plastic bottles we've got. If we ban BPA, half of those bottles are going to go, or they're going to transition. Obviously, again, commerce, number 10. Number 10 is EE2. Bro, those crickets are loud as hell. This is crazy. But, excuse the crickets. But EE2 is a birth control hormone estrogenic. This is a major one. Major big part of this. So this is probably, I would say, the hardest estrogenic to avoid. So this is the only one, the only estrogenic where European Union is powerless against. So the US and the European Union, it's contraceptions. When women drink, or they don't drink, they intake, it's like a pill, the birth control hormones, when they pee it out, and that's not a myth actually, that's been proven. So they pee it out and it goes in the water filtration. And because it's hormonal, hormones are very hard to filter. The national, what do you want to call it? The national sewer filtration system, it does not filter them properly. Hormones get left in water and they get into lakes. Now, you might be thinking, oh, that's cap. No way. Check on Google if you want. The Swiss lake, I forget the name. There's a lake in Switzerland. In Switzerland! One of the supposed, richest and nicest countries to be in. It's polluted to a very moderate to high degree with these estrogenics from women. Of freaking birth control estrogenics, bro. A lake in Switzerland. That's insane. I'll leave you with this. So, Anthony says that over 10 million women worldwide, married and unmarried, use contraception and these types of, birth control every single year. This is nuts. And what do you expect, Mo? If 100 million women consume them, well, it has to go somewhere. And it obviously goes to, the water streams everywhere. And this estrogenic, it's meant to prevent birth control, so it obviously messes up the male reproductive system. It lowers your testosterone, it fills you up with estrogen, and it oftentimes impairs the female reproductive system as well. Notice all of these are targeting the reproductive system. That's a key. So, we gotta talk about this a little more. I'll see you in the next part. The next part will discuss how we use all of this, how it, more specifically, the different regions that these estrogens attack and how we can actually defend against them in order to save yourself, your posterity, and your overall well-being. See you.